Alright guys, welcome back. This workout is for Friday, March 20th. This one is Annie Simulates a Flight. So one of the benchmark workouts we do is Flight Simulator. And if you guys can see it, it's a ascending, descending rep scheme of 5 in increments of 5 all the way up to 50, and then back down in increments of 5 all the way to 5. So just Flight Simulator must be done unbroken, which means you do 5 reps without messing up. You have to stop, then you do 10 reps without messing up, stop, 15 reps all the way up, so forth and back down. If you mess up, you have to start back off on that particular set. So if I'm on set 35 and I get to 34 and I trip up, I have to start back up until I can do that 35 unbroken, and then I move on. So those rules apply to this workout as well, but now we're gonna add some sit-ups. So the sit-ups are gonna be done in the same rep scheme. So the way that it works, you can do 5 double unders, you can do 5 sit-ups, 10 dubs, 10 sit-ups, so on forth until you finish. Or give up. Don't give up, just finish. You got time. Shouldn't say that, should I?
So much time.
Okay, so we're gonna go over some stuff that you can do whether you have equipment or not at home. I really like the RPM rope. It's kind of pricey. I got it as a gift. And then if you guys have any jump rope works. The thing with the jump rope is it doesn't have to be fancy, you just have to get used to it. So some of them have bearings, some of them don't. Just play around with the one that you have. Don't worry about getting a fancy one. Well, one of my favorite coaches, Louis Simmons, said, don't have a 10-cent squat and a $100 pair of shoes. So get good at the movement and then add the equipment later. If I were to step on the loop and then pull it up, this is right around my armpit level. The shorter the rope, the tighter your position has to be. If it's a little bit longer, you have a little bit more room for error without getting it like really, really long. Yeah, I think that's it on the jump ropes. Feel free to ask me questions if you guys have questions on the ropes. Oh, the other thing, if it's a little bit heavier, you have a little bit more feedback. So you might be able to, if you're just learning double unders, sometimes the heavier ropes are a little more helpful. Okay, first thing we'll go over as far as scaling goes, and I don't know if I talked about this enough. We do scaling in our classes, in all of our classes, but one thing about scaling, just like CrossFit, you want it to be constantly varied. That means if you've been doing a certain scale, try doing a different one, and then if you've done that one, keep doing a different one. There's a ton of them. I'll give you a handful that you guys can rotate through, especially if you're doing jump ropes or things a lot in the next couple weeks. Do a different scale each time, even if you're jumping, just play around with it. So the first thing I always like to do when I train movement, which is essentially what we're doing, is if I can get better at this movement, will it help me get better at another movement? I like to get more bang for my buck. So I'm gonna show you a way to do your jump rope that's a skill transfer into running, which means if I can get better at my jump rope this way, it'll actually help me get better at running without having to run. So here's how it goes. Should we flip it or is that okay? Whatever, it works. You guys can see me, I hope. If not, holler at me. So here's the deal. If I'm gonna run, I wanna keep kind of a tight arm right here. I don't wanna have this long arm. I'm gonna keep it close. And then I wanna keep my body in pretty close. I don't want things kind of swinging around on me. I also need to know where my body is in space. I'm not the most coordinated person. I just practice a lot. So one way for me to know where my body is say that 10 times fast, is I'm just gonna squeeze my feet together. So if I squeeze my feet together, I know where my feet are without having to look at them. So I'm gonna start with just some jumps, find a flat spot here, if you can still hear me. I'm gonna squeeze my feet together, and each time I jump, I'm gonna let my heel hit the ground as if I was running. So it looks like this, fingers crossed. Oh, that would have been so cool. And then from the front, so I'm trying to get as little movement with my body as possible. So that's scale number 1. I want you to be able to do 10 in a row with the same tempo. You'll be able to hear it if there's no music on. You should be able to do 10 without going faster or slower. Once you can do that, I want to see if you can control your speed. So what you would do is you go 10. See if you can slow it down, speed it up. Your body position shouldn't change. So as you speed it up, if your arms started going or your legs start getting crazy, you're gonna stay at that particular scale. The other thing you can do if you don't have a jump rope, you can do these same things without your rope. So I'm gonna show you the next two without the rope. You can, again, if you have your rope, use it. I'm just gonna imagine, or I have this little crack in the ground. So what I'm gonna do is, with my feet together apart, and kind of videotape myself, or I can make a little imaginary X or write something on the sidewalk. I'm gonna just very, very tightly, so not these big jumps, see if I can jump side to side, over. If I can, I'm gonna get my hands going. If my hands start to get crazy, I'm gonna work on the scale until they don't. The other one is just a front to back, jump, just like so. So now I have, what was it, 3 or 4 scales that I can work on. I can work on speed. All of these should be working on control. With double unders, we all know your hands are doing something different than your feet, which is the tricky part of this. So any of the scales, you can do that where your feet are doing something different. It's gonna help you get better at your double unders, or at least your coordination. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is for a double under jump, you need kind of a floaty jump. Let me show you what a double under looks like. I'm gonna show you a few singles, and then I'll jump into my dub. So it looks like here's my singles. And there's my double under jump. So my jump isn't super high, and if you look back at that, it's also relatively slow. So I'll show you one more time. Notice the speed of my double under jump. Here's my single. Pretty close to the same tempo, or it should be. So when I'm ready to start, if I have them, just go for it. If I don't, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on a floaty jump. So if you can imagine, I just gotta peek over this wall for my single. I'm gonna try to float over the wall for my double, like you're trying to peek into your neighbor's yard. See if they have any spare toilet paper. That was a terrible joke. All right. So once I have that, I can add my rope back in and see if I can do those floaty singles, or if you don't have a rope, don't use a rope. Here's what a floaty single might look like. So just like so. The other thing you can do if you don't have a rope is you can work on the timing. The timing drill is just a penguin drill. The reason they call it a penguin drill is because at the bottom, your hands are gonna be out. That's the trick. You don't want your hands out at the top. So every time I jump, I'm gonna hit my hips. When I'm ready to do my doubles, I'm just gonna double tap at the top and then again land here. So it looks like this. When I get that, what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to rebound off the ground. So for double unders and jumps, or plyometrics, like box jumps, some versions of them, we're trying to keep our feet in contact with the ground as little as possible. We want it to be kind of springy, so it looks like this. If you guys have any questions on double unders or drills, please holler at me. For the sit-ups, moving on, that was a lot. Or if you guys have other drills that you like, share them with us. All right, guys, if you have an ab mat, awesome. If you don't have an ab mat, you can use your sweatshirt. So with sit-ups, we're trying to work on the muscles that flex your hips, right? Those include your abs. Those also include your hip flexors, a group of muscles that's all it does. It bends you at the hip. So a couple of different ways to do that, or to train those, are your sit-ups, and I'll show you a couple versions. I can use my sweatshirt too, or a towel as my ab mat. The reason I like the ab mats is because they allow me to get into like a wider range than I normally would. And all that means is I can actually open up a little bit more here than I would be able to if I was flat on the ground. So I can work my abs a little bit more range. You can kind of compare it to like a deeper squat. Essentially, that's what we're doing. If my feet are flat, or even better yet, if they're anchored under something or someone's holding them down, I can actually work my hip flexors, this particular group of muscles, a little bit more than if I go butterfly style. So if I go butterfly style with my feet together, it's a lot harder for me to get into these, the leg hip flexors. So it's a little bit more of an isolated ab exercise. Again, one of these is not better than the other. If you work them in combination, you can actually develop a little bit stronger movement in that range. Some other variations you can do are straight leg. So again, talked about these are some muscles that help you. If you guys struggle with toe to bar, this is actually a pretty good exercise to do because it helps work the muscles that you need to kind of get your toes up to the bar. So I'm going to use my legs really hard to make these sit-ups happen. I'm going to try to pull the back of my knees into the ground, flexing my legs, and then I'm going to come up one vertebrae at a time. If I'm struggling with this movement, my feet will kind of come up as I do my sit-ups. So we want to make sure your legs stay down really hard. You can straddle them, you can go straight leg depending on what your flexibility is. As far as like the standard on the sit-up, whichever one you pick, at the top you want your shoulder slightly in front of your hip. So if it's behind your hip, it's no good. If it's right on top, you just want to go slightly in front. If your feet are out in front of you, usually if you touch your toes or out in front of your toes, you're going to be there. Some other versions of this are tuck-ups. You can lay on the ground, you can use your ab mat or not. Your upper body and your lower body are going to move together, and then they're going to move apart together. So some common faults on this one are my upper body comes up, and then my lower body comes up, or I come back down, everything's disconnected. So again, your abs, that midline is what's supposed to be the mover and keeping you all together. So you want to make sure that your body's moving the way that we want it. If you guys have other scales or want other scales, let me know, ask us questions, post your time, post some videos. Talk to you guys soon.